We got Seth Rujiraviriyapinyo on our podcast today. Welcome to Motion Mentors, everybody. Today we are going to dive in on Seth's journey from being a professional and well-recognized parkour athlete to being a gym owner and beyond. So welcome, Seth.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. And we also have Christopher Hollingsworth on the call with us from Motion Mentors. Hi, Chris.
Hi, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Excited to be talking with Seth, especially.
All right, guys. So let's jump into it. Seth, tell us a little bit about when, before you actually opened the gym, who were you? What was parkour to you, and what was the process of you being an athlete, establishing your name in America, especially in the competitive scene, everything leading up to opening your gym?
Yeah, so a little bit of just background about me and my parkour history. So started doing parkour in 2011, and then through that, really started enjoying to travel. I was mostly self-taught for kind of the first 4 or 5 years. Didn't really have a community, didn't have anybody to train with for the most part, and started going to events and jams and competitions. And that really inspired me to just have other people to train with, kind of training with people across the country in a way. But then in 2015, as I was graduating college, I had the chance to open up Swift Movement Studio, and we were getting our first space. So one thing about me is I'd always wanted to be a coach. And before I did parkour, I'd done 7 years of pretty high level cross country and track. But then as I kind of transitioned into parkour, something that I still really wanted to do was be a coach. So as we started getting the gym together, that kind of just worked alongside my day job doing software development, and kind of took that as a second job in a way. And for a long time, it just started out as coaching and taking more and more of a role on in getting everything built and then learning how to do the program and so many different kind of fun but also challenging aspects of entrepreneurship. As I started to kind of go into that pursuit, I guess. When
you had your accomplishment at NAPC, I believe you got second place in speed overall, right? Very cool.
So I think my competitive focus was really kind of from, I'd say, 2016 to 2019 is really when I was focusing on competition side of things. And part of having the gym was a big asset in being able to develop those skills. So yeah, I'd gotten second in NAPC speed. I think I got podium at NAPC probably 3 or 4 times, kind of both in skill and speed, got top 5 multiple times. And then also went on to World Chase Tag, and my team was able to get second at Worlds in, I think that was 2018 or 19. I can't remember at this point, but that was something that was super cool and really a challenge, but something that I was really made it something that I'm more excited to share and develop people in our local community with that.
I think that's actually such a cool thing to hear. As someone that has just traveled around and worked with different people and as a parkour gym owner, many people open up gyms wanting to pursue their athletic careers as well and use the gym as a place to do that. But I have found that so many people struggle with opening up a gym and then continuing their athletic pursuits, their personal development. And you seem to be juggling that really, really well. Your entrepreneurial progression and your athletic progression seem to be 2 plates that you're spinning successfully. And I would love to hear any insights that you have into how you've balanced your personal and professional life so well. Because I can just, being able to podium at an international competition that people from all over the world fly into to compete at, while also managing a gym full time and not allowing it to burn out your passion. What would you say is some of the sources of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think something with that is I'm very systematic in most of the things that I do, whether that's my personal parkour athletic training or when I was a runner, like very heavily consistent, as that is a core part of each day. And when I was training for the competition circuit, I'd have periodization. So each season was focusing on different types of things, and even broken down to each week had different types of things that I was focusing on each day of the week. That way I could really, like, even though I only had often like an hour and a half to train each day, that would still really let me be able to get the conditioning in, be able to get the skill specific things that I needed and the integration, while still kind of also juggling running the gym and the full-time job on top of that. So
you were really intentional about like the time that you would schedule and how you scheduled it and what you practiced during those times. That's super, super important to know. I think that's just, that right there is like a gold nugget of insight, you know?
Okay. So I'm hearing that was after you had already opened the gym. Let's back up a little bit and tell me about, like, what was the trigger from going from, I think I can open a gym, to actually doing it. And then, you open the gym on that day one. What's the whole process leading up to that?
To be honest, I ended up kind of stepping into, as I was graduating school, I moved to Cincinnati, and my prior business partner was already in the process of wanting to open up a gym. He'd been kind of working towards that for a few years and had been running classes out of a gymnastics facility. So even when I first moved, we were still running classes out of that facility for a good 2 years, kind of in both locations. But I think a big part of that to me was just the desire to have a space, and I kind of lucked into getting involved as an owner in a way. It was really, I wanted to be a coach, but then I wanted the business to thrive and succeed, and really just had a passion to help as many people get the joy and experience that I'd gotten from it. Gotten so many different values from doing parkour that it's kind of hard to say what that initial part was like, because we didn't have any idea what we were doing. It started, we had an empty warehouse. We spent 2 weeks scrubbing the floors. Then we put about 6 boxes in there and literally had a sawhorse with a piece of plywood on it as our front desk for a lot longer than I'd like to admit. But gradually, we had 3 clients come in our very first day. They were people that we did not know. They somehow found out about us through the weeds. And one of my favorite things was one of those very first clients then proceeded to stick with us for, I think, 5 years. And also his son, who was then too young, but eventually his son joined in as well into our pre-K parkour program. And really cool to see how it's been able to just spread and grow. And I think at this point we've had, looking at least at waiver numbers as far as how many people have come through, I think we're at approaching 10,000 people that have come through the gym.
Yeah, that's a lot of lives impacted.
Wow.
And on day one, to have your length of engagement be 5 years, that's pretty incredible. Okay, so you came on as a coach, and then over time took on equity. Other people came and went. And tell us about the process of going from, were you a co-owner or were you just a coach, going all the way to now you're the sole owner? Because I think a lot of listeners are coaches or are people who are around another parkour business or are around maybe a gymnastics gym who they're teaching a parkour program out of, but they don't have any ownership in it. And a lot of times the question of what does one need to bring to the table to justify taking over ownership of an existing company, which we can talk about in a second. But let me hear your journey and what were those steps and just what happened along the way.
Yeah, so I kind of came on as a coach. To be honest, a lot of that not knowing what level of involvement I wanted to have. I know that I wanted to coach for sure, but didn't have a super strong relationship or even desire to be an owner in the beginning. But as things went on, it really just stepped more and more into not just things around the curriculum, but learning the marketing side of things, learning the business side of things, and really just starting more and more to help out and cover different things. Obviously, like did a lot of the construction and build things too from the ground up. And as I just got more and more invested into what the future of the business could be, I had a vision of how I would like to see it grow. And that's kind of when stepping into that co-ownership position made sense. So that was about 2 years into, about 2 years into the business. I went from just being a coach and into a partial owner. And then that continued on for about, I guess 4 more years in that fashion. And then at one point things just, my co-owner had different vision for myself, and we had talked about it a bunch and kind of set out some different goals of what we were looking to do and what like things we were currently investing into the business, both time and resources. And he was just being less passionate about it at this point. So it made sense for me to kind of step in. Along the way, my wife actually stepped in also. So for a period there were 3 of us as owners. And then my previous co-owner dropped out after about a year of that. And then actually, as of just a couple months ago, my wife is stepping away so that she can open her own business. And now I'm taking on as kind of the sole owner, which I think a lot of that wouldn't really be possible if I hadn't learned so much more about how to develop systems and work through the process of delegating and hiring and things like that.
Okay, so you systematically learn skills such as marketing, and your passion and the time that you are going to be contributing increased, while the other co-founders of the gyms decreased. And so you kind of swap places with them, and you were able to do that because you learned skills like marketing. You were taking on, just more responsibility and putting in more time into the business, taking over from the previous owners. So I just want to highlight that for anyone who's listening, thinking about like, how can I participate as an owner? And there's oftentimes 3 major things you need to bring to the table. You need to either be bringing money, so much more money than the other people that like you can scale this business or just totally launch it powerfully. The other one would be skills. You have the skills, such as Seth said, he learned the marketing and he is a software developer. So he has a huge amount of technical prowess there. So you're bringing those skills that no one else has, and those skills are essential to running and growing the business. The third one would be time. You have a huge amount of time, passion, and sweat equity. And you are ready to be boots on the ground, in there with clients, in there with the people who are growing the gym with you, and you're doing the work. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering, how can I participate in that? It's those 3 things. And if you don't have a pile of money, then either go out and learn the skills, sales, marketing, software and all those things. Sales and marketing are 2 huge ones that, you can really take that in any industry. And then it's just time. Can you show up, 6 days out of the week, 7 days out of the week, and just make this happen? Okay. So for you, Seth, you are the owner now, or maybe let's back up a little bit, since you said that was about a month ago. Tell us about the trend. What was happening when you had the gym, you're still being an athlete? What was working well? What was good? And what was beginning to be difficult? Like, what was the strain in not working? What's the bad and the ugly side of that too?
I think biggest thing really comes to time. Like, time management was always something super challenging, kind of juggling a pretty much 40-hour work week with, I think for a long time, I was coaching about 20 hours a week, and then probably spending another 10, 15 hours a week on the business development side of things. So had pretty consistently for, I'd say, like 2, maybe 3 years of like 60 to 80 hour work weeks of juggling lots of stuff. And that was really hard. At one point had to step away for a little while because I just couldn't handle everything and had too many things kind of all hit at the same time. I was like, I just can't handle this right now. So it's not easy. There's definitely been a lot of struggles with it, and tons of just kind of guessing what you're doing. A lot of times there's, especially in a parkour business, there is not a model for people who have done this thousands of times. There's I think probably around 1,000 parkour gyms across the world at this point. So it's still very much a figure it out, try things, figure out what your cadence of being able to try something, check the numbers, fail, move to the next thing, and a fine balance of just trying to figure out what you should be doing.
That's actually one thing that I've seen really consistently with you, Seth, is, and it's one of the skills that has had you succeed in this area, is reaching out to people who have been in that situation before, which is a small number of people, like you pointed out. There's not many gym owners who are dealing with the specific and nuanced issues of running a parkour gym, and so really your only options are reaching out to someone like us, motion mentors, we're recently established, or posting in one of the various like really small niche pocket groups that has like maybe half a dozen people that have experienced your issue before. But that is something that you've been doing. You've always reached out to people who have had the same or similar experiences and have learned what they have done and then applied it successfully. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I think that's a really crucial skill to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think had I tried to figure out everything on our own, we would have failed a long time ago. Like, really do need to make sure you're not just learning from your own mistakes, but being able to learn from the mistakes of others, as well as the successes of others. Because even within the parkour gym space, there are so many different models that have survived and succeeded. And part of that is figuring out what model you want to pursue and what works for your business. So it's something interesting that most parkour gyms are very heavily youth centric, but there are a handful of gyms out there that are almost exclusively adults. And that's been really cool to just be able to learn from each other owner and programs and see and try and understand why does that work and how have they been able to develop that, because there's so many different things to learn from everybody. And there's really no set path to success, but there's a lot that can be learned in kind of all of those different areas.
Absolutely. I know that you are an avid book reader like myself. I see you posting like the end of the year, here's all the books I've read. Before we move on to my next big topic, I want to see if there's any books that you felt like were particularly impactful for you, either personally as the entrepreneur or books that gave you a lot of, insight into actually running the business. Yeah.
So actually I didn't get really into reading books until around 2020. And then after having some like mental health issues, just started reading more. And that has now become a core part of my daily routine of reading at least 20 minutes a day. But I think as far as books that have really had an impact, I think Atomic Habits is a huge one that I always recommend to people as far as just being able to systematize your life. Something I mentioned earlier was like how I have pretty set things in place. One of the quotes I really love from it is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So having key systems in place, building habits that work for you is a key part of like being able to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. On the business side of things, I think a few that have really stuck out to me. One was Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. Really good one as far as learning the importance and some practical steps of how to delegate. And it's not just like how do you assign things, but how do you express the importance of what it is that you want somebody to help you with, and how do you do that? I've also really enjoyed a lot of the content from like Alex Hormozy and Two Brain Business. I think both of those have also been really helpful. Both books and a lot of video content is huge too. So you don't have to read. You can listen to audiobooks. You can watch videos. You can pretty much find any medium you want at this point to gain knowledge. So
you can listen to a podcast such as this.
Listen to a podcast, yeah.
All right. So then on that note, let's start diving into the tactics that work in a parkour gym. So bring me to, at what point did you reach out to motion mentors? What were you struggling with? Or maybe just what came into your sphere of influence that triggered, I need some help here, especially on the who, not how, like who is going to be the person to like show me what to do next and so on. So what was that like for you?
Yeah. So I think in general, just started reaching out and connecting to Jimmy a little bit more. Just kind of finding out what things were working for you, and had also like known that you had gone through an experience of like starting a gym and then also having a child and doing it remotely, which is far more difficult than being able to be there all the time. That's something that I've seen as a struggle point, with a lot of times having to be at my other job. The area that we were really trying to develop was our sales system, in particular being able to reach out to clients and have kind of a phone call funnel, like warm lead funnel into the sales process. I'd done some research and we actually like started, and just as I was getting into that, I was like, man, there's a lot of work and I don't think we have the time to really do this well. And I want to hire a salesperson, and I don't even know where to start with. How do I hire a salesperson? How do I train them? What do I have them do? How can I make that so that they are effective and it's not a loss? Because honestly, one of the scariest things in, I think, running a business is hiring people, because you suddenly go from handling something that you know you can do well and quickly, to having to pay out more payroll. And payroll's, at least in this business, I think pretty consistently one of the top two. It's either your rent or your payroll, but those are usually a huge chunk of your expenses. So really got to the point where it's like, all right, what we're doing is not really working, and want to find out who's doing this well. And then I think along the way we were talking, and you mentioned you were working to start, and you just helped another facility, I think, at that point with this process of kind of training them and teaching them how to do it. And then we got talking, and I was like, yeah, as much as I would love to do that, and I know it would be significantly cheaper, really the position I'm at with the amount of time that I have to juggle this just doesn't work. So hired you to come in and both kind of create all of our documentation, the processes, set up some job posting ads, do the interviews with people, hire a few individuals, and then start doing virtual training. And then you came out for a week, did in-person training for like 3 or 4 days, and then kind of continued on just assessing the like criteria for success and making sure that those individuals were trained, and that really I didn't have any more questions as we kind of got through it to then close out the project essentially. So that made it huge as far as being able to like went from, I was doing all of the sales at the beginning of last year for 3 or 4 months, so that my coaches could focus on coaching and they didn't have to juggle those responsibilities, because those are often very different responsibilities. And I think a lot of times also creates a negative experience for the client, in a lot of ways. Yeah, through that process, we've now been up and running with kind of a sales team for 3-4 months at this point, and has really continued to see, I guess 4 or 5 months actually. But after probably the first 2 months, they were able to consistently kill it, and has taken that whole load off of my shoulders, and then been able to like continue to delegate more and more to them. They're now handling a lot of our marketing and lead generation as well, which has been massively beneficial to the growth of the business.
That is awesome, man. So when Seth initially reached out to us, we pitched him on kind of, 3 tiers at that time, but now we have two main things that we offer. parkour businesses, not just gym owners. So the one would be, one-on-one mentoring calls with us. And, between me and Chris, we have 20 years of experience in parkour and also in leadership training. Chris in a moment can speak a little bit about what he brings to the table from his background also. But we offered Seth just one-on-one coaching via phone calls, remote, and access to, any templates that he may need. But Seth opted for our highest package, and that's what he said, where we physically show up in the gym and we do the work for you. And you may have heard that Seth has a full other, part-time job being a software developer. And so when time is of the essence, and as the entrepreneur that it's difficult to find the space to not only learn all those skills, but then implement all those skills. And then you still have to figure out where you messed up and clean it all up anyway. And that's all ahead of actually hiring and training the salespeople, which is a big part of what we did for Seth, was plugging in a whole client acquisition system for him. So we set all that up ahead of time, hired initially 3 salespeople, and we hired more than we needed because I have just seen so many times that one of them always drops off. So glad we did that, and that did happen. And then we showed up, and by the way, these people were not parkour people. They were people who had sales experience and who were coachable and, passed my initial screenings. And we trained them on what is parkour, gave them the conviction of why is parkour so powerful for kids so that they could transfer that to parents for a powerful close. We trained them on how to make the pitch, how to do a proper tour of the gym. And then when they do the actual pitch, oftentimes parents, they're stuck in that state of anxiety and they say no, I need to go talk to my spouse, or, ooh, I forgot my card in my car and I need to drive home to get it. And they just want to get out the door. And so we are also training the salespeople on overcoming objections, the 3 steps of overcoming an objection specifically. And so that they are reliably getting new members in the door via booking them, because we now have leads systematically coming in from the website, and we set it all up with different software. So we know exactly where those leads are going. They're flopping into our CRM. The sales team can pick them up, book them, sell them in person, and then we have a system for growth. So we did all that for Seth. And Seth, what were your numbers before you hired us? So membership numbers, revenue, whatever you want to throw out.
Yeah.
And then tell us what you noticed and where did it land, as of today.
Yeah. I think so. Beforehand, I think we were having around, we were getting about 8 to 10 new members a month in our decent months, and a lot less in the summer. I think we were probably only gaining, I think usually we were net 0 or negative during the summer months. But then, we'd gotten started in August, and the very first month of having the sales team, I think we got 15 sales of new members. And then they pretty much got between 15 and 20 for the next 3 months, and are still consistently hitting around 15 to 20 new members a month, which is those break down to kind of between $100 to $150 per member. So we are now from roughly 80 members at that point to, I think this month we were probably at around 110, 120, and have just continued to see that trend go up. And the biggest benefit of that too is that has allowed our coaching staff to then also be able to focus on their side of the delivery and improve the retention. So now it's also helping the length of engagement. So we're not just getting more people in the door, but the people that we have are able to stay for longer because our coaches have more effort that they can put into the quality of classes and the retention and that side of things.
That is fantastic. And if we brought it back to when we asked you at the beginning of this interview, here you are, this fantastic athlete transitioning into a business owner. What is the key challenge that you face? And what you said was, man, how much time it takes to manage the multifaceted nature of this role as a gym owner. And for you to be doing most of the sales work, to take that pressure off of the coaches, to allow them to be fully present with kids, for that, for you to establish a sales team and just have that completely free up your time, you know, for me, that makes me like so freaking happy, because that's the whole reason why Jimmy and I created Motion Mentors. Yes, it produces these quantitative results where you're getting 15 to 20 members a month, every month, continually, but it also qualitatively in the background is freeing up your time as a gym owner, allowing you to really focus on these different tasks and these different things that you can focus on, and the rest of your staff, your coaches, they get to be freed up as well. And like, that just makes me so happy. I'm thrilled to hear that, seriously.
Another big tidbit from that is a lot of times a good athlete doesn't necessarily make a great coach. Those are definitely not tied. And I think even more so, I would say a good athlete or a good coach does not make a great salesperson. There's very different skills there. And I think also a lot of times, most of the people in parkour are coming from a background that does not lend itself well to succeeding in sales. So I think that has been a huge piece of it as well.
Absolutely. That was my experience when I was, when Freedom in Motion, my parkour gym, first opened. I was the coach, I was the front desk, I was the behind the scenes, and we opened with a bunch of my friends. So we had a lot of them coaching, but for all the like key business leader roles and the sales and marketing, it was all on my shoulders. And I remember having the first couple of customers in front of me, and if they were parents and they were like unsure of exactly what parkour is, like, is this dangerous? What is my kid actually learning here? I just super didn't know how to address their concerns in such a way as to close the sale. I could kind of speak to parkour and I could say like what we're doing, but as far as actually, can I have your credit card now? Like, let's get you signed up and, do that right now before you walk out the door. Those are specific psychological touch points that if you can learn them, it really, really can take your conversion rate of a trial class to a new member from like, 20% up to, now at Freedom in Motion and a couple of the other gyms that we help, we will see an 85% conversion, anywhere from 75 to 85% conversion on that first day, not even including people who do walk out, and then we do follow-ups with them. And so if you're listening to this and you have an idea of your whole sales pipeline from new leads to bookings to new members, and if you see that there is a fat drop off between trial class and actual people signing up, right there are communication skills. Right there are psychological triggers that if you can just understand and learn how to speak into someone's just fear of making a decision and making a commitment and spending money, this would be the parent signing their kid up. You can just speak to that and instead connect them to the future of this is going to be something insanely beneficial for your kid. It's not just jumping on boxes. It's not just vaulting. This gives your kid access to, they are learning that they are someone who can do hard things. They learn for the rest of their lives. If they just practice, fail, practice, they'll eventually succeed. And if you can give that to a parent in a way that also, handles like that right now, they just feel like they're kind of scared, and you can make them feel comfortable with how you're being with them. Now you can close the sale, which is cool. But now that kid who signed up has access to your parkour gym and access to that juice that parkour gives people, not just the vaults, but that personal experience of that parkour can really change your life. And if you're good at sales, throw out the word sales. You're good at giving kids access to that life transformation. So a lot of times just making that switch and then getting curious about what does it take? What are the skills needed? That is just, I love teaching people that. So thanks for saying all that, Seth.
I want to jump in too right there, because you're pointing to something that is so critical. And Seth and I actually were literally just talking about this section of the pipeline on a call together this week, which is you could assert, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the actual term for this from the trial to registration is your conversion rate, right? Okay, so if you have a low conversion rate, and what I mean by low is anything less than 65%, and honestly, even like 85% is what is to be expected, in my opinion, if this is working well. If you have anything lower than 85 or 65% on your conversion rate, you could assert that there is definitely something missing in the communication skills, in the handoff between the coach finishing the class with that trial student, and then making sure that the parents and the child are upfront with the salesperson, getting that sales closed off, all of their questions answered, scheduled for the next class, celebrated for their fantastic achievement, their courage of coming to their first parkour class. So if I see a low conversion rate, immediately as a general manager or as a gym owner, I would look at that and say, oh my gosh, there's literally just human connection missing here. And it shows up, that's just one KPI where lack of human connection makes all of the difference. There are so many of your KPIs depend on your staff's ability to connect with people, which is one of the reasons why I love Swift Movement so much, is because the person that's running it is so passionate about personal development. I hope you don't mind me sharing, but one of the things that we were focusing on in our call together was how to have your staff value personal development in the way that you've come to value it. That's literally what we were talking about is, man, how's my staff going to get connected to why it's so important to work on yourself and constantly improve yourself? So I just wanted to point that out and share those points as well. I'm getting juiced off of this conversation.
Let's talk a little bit about how are we even getting people in the door? This was a big piece that we addressed with Swift Movement. I should have pulled up your specific numbers, but the amount of leads that you had coming in, if you remember off the top of your head, I don't, but that was something that we needed to address. So Seth, if you can walk us through a little bit about what you were doing before hiring me and hiring Chris with Motion Mentors, with your external marketing, so like actually reaching out and telling people, and also your internal sales engineering. Sales engineering, for everyone listening, that is the actual like software and structures and how everything is connected internally, so that if someone were to go to your website and submit a lead form, if you have a lead form on your website, then what happens to that lead? So, how you set all that up on the back end is your sales engineering. So yeah, what were you doing before we came, and then what did you end up with after?
Yeah, so for the longest time, probably, I guess, like 7 years of running the gym, we'd had some form of system that allowed clients to book their first trial class directly themselves on the website. And most of the time, our kind of lead funnel going into that was just through Facebook and Instagram ads. We've also done Google ads and things like that. But we saw the system we were using made it complicated for people to sign up. So we got a pretty significant drop off immediately there. So one of the first things that we kind of worked through as we started working with Motion Mentors was to make some changes to the website, improve that process so that it was really easy for people to just give us their name, email, and phone number. And with those 3 pieces of information, we would then contact them, set up a call so that we could then have a good conversation and make sure they understand what they're signing up for, that we can make sure we sign them up for the best thing for them, as well as be able to then actually get them excited for their first class, and set the expectations in advance, which made a huge difference as far as people enjoying those initial classes. The other thing we were doing initially was we had a separate class specifically for a trial. So it would be pretty much one-on-one or one family with one coach doing that sales process. They would kind of give them a tour of the gym. They would give them a 30, 40-minute lesson and then talk to them about membership options and see if anything made sense for them. And that by itself added a ton of extra kind of costs and made it more complicated, because then people also didn't get to really experience the classes. They experienced a version of the class. So yeah, we started out, we updated the website, we improved our ads so that they were more streamlined and gave a more direct call to action. That got more people signing up through that lead form. And then really the key point was going from there and setting up kind of the different call and text and email funnels. Kind of we're using WordPress website and then into Fresh Sales as a CRM, and then having that be a great source as far as our sales team being able to connect with those people and text them and call them and leave voicemails, and made that whole process so much easier and more consistent and streamlined to get them in the door for their first class. It was pretty much ads and social media marketing, and then trying to get them to sign up for their own first class, which
is hard.
A lot of difficulties.
So in the beginning, parents were expected to figure it out on their own. There were lots of clicks. A dedicated mom had to go to your website, then learn how to use Zen Planner, integrate it with your site, set up their own account, figure out which class was theirs. And so that is a high friction funnel that we're expecting a parent to have high motivation to go through. And so what we did with Seth, as he said, was we removed Zen Planner, and Zen Planner could be whatever it is, MindBody, Pike 13, whatever your client management system is. We removed that from the website totally, at least from where people can sign up. And we replaced it with a native lead form. And so now parents just see a proper landing page with a video, pictures, some testimonials, and all they have to do is enter their name, their email, phone number, click submit, and then they're done. There's no more navigating. There's no more investigation that the parent needs to do. And then we set up a system that takes that lead and drops it into a CRM, which is a client relationship manager or customer relationship management software. And this is where the sales team comes in. So the sales team, who we now have newly hired, newly trained, they're sitting at their desk, and when they're on their computer, they have that software pulled up and they see each of those names that came in through your website listed as new leads. And now the sales team, and listener, you'll be able to hear how, when done right, your sales team is a revenue generator, not a liability on your payroll. When they are contacting those new leads, they're sending them a text, which they can do from the software, a call, an email, and they can track how many times they have been contacting this lead before actually getting a hold of them. And over the days, we train the sales team to say different things at the different touch points. So what they say on the first time reaching out is different than what they say on the last time reaching out. And because we have baked in psychological triggers to increase the conversion rate from new lead to booking. And so now Seth's sales team is reaching out to those people, getting proactive, actively booking them into spots. And so that's way easier for the parent, way less friction, and a higher sense of customer service and care coming from your Parkour Gym. And then, as Seth said, they changed the actual first experience quite a bit. It used to be a sort of private lesson, private class, which is cool. But like Seth said, it gives them a inaccurate experience of what they're paying for. Because then when they come back, they're going to be like, where's my private lesson? Now I'm in a group of 10 people. But they switched to a normal, dropping them into a beginner's class. And then we launched something called the Perfect First Day Policy. And that is where the coaches and the sales team partner up, and they sort of play this behind the scenes ping pong with the client to give that client a really great seamless experience that optimizes for a great class and an easy sale close. Seth, can you tell us a little bit about what that Perfect First Day procedure looks like in your gym?
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing is, as the client walks in, salesperson greets them and then kind of gathers some like waiver and gets them checked in for their class. And then really they have that chance while the coach is still kind of doing other classes and things. Salesperson is able to take them on a tour, explain parkour, answer any questions about the facility kind of at that point, about what are the different classes that we offer, what are the benefits of parkour, why do we have these different things, and how can they potentially help you or your child. So then at the end of that, they hand it off to and introduce the coach. That gives the parent or student a chance to go ahead and meet their coach individually before jumping into the class. And then once the class actually starts, they join in and get to experience an awesome first class where they get to learn some new moves. We have a system, level up system, where then they gain some new skills. And then at the end of the class session there, they then, the coach brings the new student back up to the front and celebrates that that participant's experience in class, what things they did well, and then gives them a vision of what they can accomplish in the future, and kind of ties what they did well and what they still have to work on. And then from that, the sales team is able to kind of bounce off of that and continue to celebrate that success and understand what their vision is, because a lot of times the coach has a better chance to get to interact with the person. So then the coach can even kind of gather some of that information about what things they hope to accomplish and be able to call that out as they're doing that handoff. Another piece that I missed there was there's also a questionnaire form that a lot of times the salesperson has a parent fill out during the class that gives key information about like their sports background, and kind of highlighting that it's a great, like Swift is an awesome place for them to learn parkour, highlights the quality of our coaches, and then also kind of gets into understanding what some of their potential objections are around scheduling and how often they want to come and what they're kind of seeing this experience as. So from that, the salesperson then has the chance to kind of go through the schedule, understand what the client really wants, and then gives them the best recommendation on which either membership or class or things kind of to go through from there. And then, yeah, celebrates it and gets them signed up for the next class.
Totally.
That's awesome. I wanted to tie in as well. Earlier, we were talking about if your conversion rate is low from trial to registration, there's probably some sort of skill that's missed. Well, we just went over like what are the skills. Seth just like perfectly articulated like what are the exact steps to ensure that that conversion rate is really successful. So, and you can just hear the importance of the connection all the way through. It's connection, all the way from getting the person into the front door to having them leave with a future created for themselves where they're participating actively. I'm curious for you, Seth, are there any steps that you found as a gym owner that implemented this first day procedure, this perfect first day procedure? Were there any steps that you particularly struggled with or that you find like are still hangups in that conversion rate or in those handoffs?
I think there's still some things as far as our class structure. So sometimes there'll be back-to-back classes, and then that can make it a little bit difficult for the coach to give a quality handoff while they are kind of doing that during a water break quickly so that they can get back to the remainder of their class so that we can then have the salesperson available to handle another person coming in a little bit later. That's one that as we are growing, we're going to hopefully hire another person to then be able to handle that. That way there's no kind of time pressure with that. But that's kind of one piece. I think the other big part of it is really just practice and reps of making sure that you hit all of the pieces. It's so easy to get a little bit overwhelmed or get thrown off and just miss pieces of that process. So just I think that's probably the biggest thing, is making sure that everybody is following the process and really being excited about it, and tying that to the direct impact that can have on a person's life, on the success of the facility, and then on the impact of the facility to other people's lives as well.
So well said. Yeah. Jimmy and I recently ran we went and investigated, well, what is the impact of this happening or not happening within our own facilities? And we had found, holy crud, if this does not happen, there's a 45%, they're 45% more likely to not sign up. That is like, it's literally the difference between whether or not we're just sending them back out to their team sports that they're doing, after school activities, versus joining the community that we're developing and building together. And that was like, whoa, now I have a statistic that I can really share with coaches and say, man, you can lead the best class ever. You can be like so on point, but if you missed, getting this kid's name and making sure that he was engaged, receiving them from the salesperson, making sure they're welcomed for the first time, celebrating their success after the class, and making sure that the salesperson has the opportunity to close that sale with the parent. Wow, nothing you did mattered. If one of those steps is missed, you could take that case, right, to create a sense of like importance for that. And I hear that, and I see you doing that at the gym at Swift Movement, which is just super top notch.
Another thing I want to point to in just the total, everything that we try to affect and improve at Swift was, another big thing was we raised prices. So tell me a little bit about where you were at in your prices, and in raising them, what was that whole process like? Did everybody cancel? Was it just like the gym was on fire as soon as Jimmy said raise prices, or did something better happen?
That was something we actually had on our docket for, I think it had been one of our annual KPIs, was to raise the prices for everyone and implement that. I think a year before I even started reaching out to you and working with you at all. But honestly, we had raised the prices some for new members, but we still had grandfathered members on their old rates. And we were honestly, I think, afraid of doing that. But yeah, that was another piece, is Jimmy kind of gave me some template emails and things to send out to our members. And then we set, everybody's going on to these new rates January 1st. And I think realistically, we probably only had less than 5% of our members like adjust their membership or drop. So, which is a massive increase. I think we are probably getting, I would say, 10 to 15% more income from memberships every month than we were before. And that was a pretty immediate impact. So, and I also think a lot of it is just, we had that fear of people like not being happy about it and not understanding why we were doing it. And I think that was the key piece to it, was being able to be like, hey, we have this big vision of really who we want to be. We are a very different place than when you first signed up 2, 3, 4 years ago. So here's this list of reasons of why that kind of is going from where we were. And then really more importantly is like what this is going to allow us to do in the future. So yeah, I think that was just in general, is in working with you, it wasn't just the sales process. It was, we did website stuff. We did the lead funnel. We talked about the ads that we had. We obviously like trained and hired the people. We talked about our program itself. We talked a little bit about the curriculum, and so many different pieces that just having you as a resource to kind of be a mentor and coach was massively beneficial.
That's awesome, man. I'm just so touched and honored that we had an impact, especially from the background of one of my personal missions and Motion Mentor's mission is to give parkour to 1 million people. And it's not just teach them how to jump on boxes. It's what I said earlier. It's give them the juice, give them that like real, what is it to be a parkour athlete? And what do you get as a life enrichment from being in that space? And I know that I will have a really hard time giving that actual sauce to 1 million people. So the only way that I can do that is either open 100 gyms, which I am working on, and I will get there, but it's way faster if I can power up entrepreneurs like you, Seth, and entrepreneurs who, you know, have outdoor parkour programs, in-gym programs. And even if you don't have a teaching program, if you're a podcast or you sell clothing, like you can still affect people. And so hearing that what we discussed when I was there in person and since then is giving you guys a greater access to changing lives through parkour and through people's enrollment in your program, I am just touched and like re-inspired to continue doing this. And I bet you, Seth, will just, because you're a good person and you're just like such a gem in the parkour community, you'll continue to disseminate everything you've personally learned, things that you've learned through this, and things you'll continue to learn. So I see you as now like an agent for creating that change of 1 million people in the world. So like I'm just so stoked that you reached out and, you know, had the trust to work with us. So very cool.
Yeah, no, it's been a great experience. And as far as sharing things, I'm super excited. Been starting some projects with generative AI and started sharing that with some others. So really excited to be able to use kind of the combined entrepreneurship and software and experience running a gym and be able to take all of those skills and really give my unique perspective and skill set to others. So
yeah, that is fantastic. That is super, super cool. And one of the things that I acknowledged you for earlier on the call is reaching out to experts and using their knowledge to boost what you're up to as well. And, you know, you shared a fantastic success story just now about what it looks like to not only increase your membership prices, increase the revenue you're bringing in by 10 to 15% a month, you know, also bringing in 15 to 20 new members, but you did that in a way where you stood on your value and what you're providing to the community and who you are for people. And you stood on that value and not only stood on it, but you broke down the walls, any barriers that was between you and your community and your customers in what that declaration was and who you were, and everyone was on board. And you have a really great success story with that. But I also have worked with gyms that have lived into that fear that you experienced, that you didn't listen to, the one where you were like, oh man, what could the people who are grandfathered here think about this? You know, I worked with the general manager of a gym where they tried to basically one-on-one with every single family that was grandfathered in, have a conversation with them, you know, trying to explain things and what that led to was a stalled membership increase. That process took like almost 2 quarters, 6 months to complete. And it also led to a burned out coaching staff, because the coaches and the front desk staff were the ones that were having to field these conversations that they were not equipped to field. And you just flew right over all of those pitfalls that you possibly could have experienced, because you hired some people that had actually been there before and then just took the appropriate actions. You know, it's like you could spend 4 to 12 years learning how to butterfly twist, or you could hire someone that could teach you all of the critical elements in 30 minutes and you avoid all the broken bones. You know, so that you just did a really great job. And I love hearing that success story, especially when it's juxtaposed against other people that I have worked with that have just not leapt where they needed to leap, you know, and they just danced with fear too much. So really great job. I'm also just stoked to hear about that.
So moving into what is next for you, you are obviously still running Swift Movement. and you guys are growing at a super nice rate, as we have learned. I know that I saw that you're training for a half marathon or a full marathon or something.
A half Ironman, which is a 70.3 mile race.
Oh my God. Yeah. And are continuing having those like group, self-development classes that you started. And I know that you and Chris, after me and you did our Jimmy parachutes into the gym and we do stuff, you continued on a lot with Chris on, leadership and other skill building. So let's transition into that. Like, where are you now? Where are you going? And what's your journey?
I think something that it's kind of been a through line and a part of just my goals as a person is to seek continued development and find where my limits are and continue to incrementally raise what those are in the physical sense, in the mental sense. And I'd reach a point where a lot of different things I'd read a lot of things and listened to a ton of things, but I was like, man, I just don't know where to go at this point. And I'm juggling too many things, and it's really hard for me to even just have anybody that I can talk to and figure out. Like, I have so many different things I want to accomplish that it's really hard to have a guide and know what my own thoughts are, like be able to bounce that around. So before connecting with Chris, I was actually looking into a few different like life coaches and like different therapists, and looked into a few different options as far as like business development coaches, and knew that there are a lot of different areas that I know I needed somebody that could help me with kind of outlining and setting a clear like mission and vision and North Star. And then I also knew that I wanted help with delegation and being able to just keep on track with all of the different kind of competing priorities that I have. So somewhere along the way, found out that Chris does that and has an experienced background in kind of business coaching and mentorship. And then that was really just the perfect pairing because of his parkour experience and understanding the gym and entrepreneurship side of it. Just made me be able to skip probably 2 or 3 hours of sessions in having to explain all of those different pieces, which, like, if you're paying a business coach, looking at a lot of money to do that, and such a waste in a way to have to spend so much time explaining a lot of that backstory. And kind of from day one, even in our introductory call before I officially started working with him, it was just like, all right, he gets it. This is going to be great. I know that we can move forward. He's great at asking questions and giving me guiding prompts to better be able to define what it is that I'm trying to do. So, yeah, I don't know. We've been working together for a few months now, and has been a great experience, and definitely continue to use that as well as my other resources. Have been developing relationships with friends and making more meaningful connections, have been improving my own skills as a business owner, as a manager, as a partner, and all while kind of still juggling all of the same things that I have before, but with a little more guidance and direction and tie to my core values and vision. So.
Oh man, thank you so much. Honestly, it's so great for me to hear that our working together has had that kind of impact on you and your life. And, I would love to talk just a little bit about the nature of like the relationship between, someone who's mentoring and someone who's being mentored. And when we initially sat down for a conversation, I remember one of the questions you asked me was like, what are the KPIs of like us working together? Which is such a great question. It's like, how do we measure like, us being effective together and us working together, which is for most life coaches, if anyone's in coaching, they'll know what I'm about to say is like super accurate, but it's difficult to measure qualitative results in a way that's quantifiable. It's hard to put buy wins and measurable results on quality of life. And so one of the things that we did together in our introductory session is we looked at, well, what would good measurements be? And one of the things that we dived into was kind of what experience of life Seth was looking for. And Seth was looking for, like he articulated beautifully just a moment ago, clarity of direction, knowing where he's going and why he's going there, making sure his actions are aligned with his core values. And so what we have focused on is making sure that while he's pursuing everything he's pursuing athletically, and while he's pursuing everything he's pursuing with his career, in his day-to-day moments, is he experiencing peace of mind? Is he experiencing joy? Is he experiencing feeling seen by other people? Is he experiencing being connected to people? Is he experiencing his accomplishments being acknowledged by others? And so a lot of our sessions have revolved around not me knowing the answer at all. I'm never approaching it with like, oh yeah, I know what to do here. What it's more so like, and this is for anyone listening to the call that also is considering some sort of mentoring relationship, what it's like is Seth and I look together at his life and what he's out to accomplish, and we put everything on the table, and we help and we prioritize together, and we brainstorm together, and we stand side by side and look at everything he's out to accomplish in life, and we make sure that the actions that we're taking are in alignment with his core values. And so it's just keeping everything in front of us and then putting two great minds together that have a lot of familiarity, a lot of background. Like what Seth was saying, we have so much parallels to our lives that it makes the synergy of our sessions so much stronger. And so that's just to talk a bit about how our relationship works, like what our calls look like, what it provides you in your life. And I'm pointing that out for people listening, considering some sort of mentoring relationship and what it could make available. Yeah, anything that you wanted to add to that, or anything that I was like inaccurate about, Seth?
I think just something to add is the value in investing in yourself. So many of the people that I really look up to as role models and see succeeding at life, they are willing to take dramatic action to like hire the experts that they want and that they see as people that they look up to in order to achieve success for themselves. Something like, I know of people spending upwards of like $20,000-$30,000 on a three-day course, like to just like learn the skills and something from, I think Alex Ramosi is, he's always like, the best thing you can invest in is yourself. So don't be afraid to buy a book to read. Don't be afraid to sign up for a class to try something. Don't be afraid to hire a mentor or a coach or somebody that has the experience in the area that you are trying to develop and grow.
That's so well said. And, there's this Zen Buddhism quote that I will butcher. I'm not going to be able to like say it verbatim, but you'll get the point, which is basically the way in which you do one thing is the way in which you do all things, and I see this as one of your core values. You are positioned on top of this value, and you see life and the way you interact with your business and the way that you interact with yourself as an individual and the way you interact with your relationships is standing on top of this value of continuous improvement, consistent taking yourself on. And, I'm curious, do you have anything to say about how that has colored and shaped and influenced you as a gym owner? Because you are a distinct gym owner. Like we have pointed out, it's not everybody that has the qualities of taking action and developing themselves in the way that you do. And you working with us is a function of this tenacity and this drive that you have to improve, because you know the difference that it can make. And so I'm curious, like, how else has this shaped your approach as a gym owner? How else has this like bled into the cracks of your business?
I think the biggest way that it's really been beneficial is that it has allowed me to continue to be excited to learn kind of every aspect of the business. So being excited, whether it's learning about the finances or how the tax codes work, or how the sales and marketing sides work, or the curriculum itself, or just finding every little piece of it, and how can I like be excited about learning that thing and upskilling myself. So I think that's been a big piece of it. That's really allowed me to succeed at it. Kind of the other piece, which I don't know how this ties in specifically to your question, but I think is a very helpful thing from my experience as a gym owner, is that having had another like stable job has afforded me the flexibility to be able to like not put nearly as much pressure and stress on the business succeeding. It has allowed me to like have periods that are up and down and learn a lot more from it, and be able to just like continue to learn piece by piece, and let the business grow slowly and figure some of those things out, rather than having that pressure of like from day one having to do everything myself and be able to pay myself enough that I can eat and live and have a
100%.
okay life. So
100%. So well said. And that totally answers my question, because, you know, one of your strengths is that you don't live in a fantasy. You are a very logical and reasonable person, while still allowing for the space to have dreams and ambitions. And one of the ways that you align yourself with reality is you didn't, just like you said here with your job, you didn't have to put every single egg in the basket of Parkour Gym. You were able to have, you know, your tech job to basically provide a cushion for you to approach the Parkour Gym without a sense of urgency and without a sense of recklessness. You know, it gave you some space. And I think that's important for anyone listening. The action that you have to take may not be get a job to financially support myself, but you do want to look at what are the big stressors in my life, you know, in relationship to the gym, and what actions can I take to actually, you know, relieve some of those stressors. And so that absolutely, it answers my question for sure. Yeah. Anything that you wanted to add there, Jimmy?
Well, I know many other parkour gym owners, including myself back in the day, don't have an additional source of income. So there is that sort of sense of urgency. So the way that we address that directly with the number of parkour gyms that we've helped since yours, Seth, is we have like a short-term sprint where we sit down and we identify essentially the easiest opportunities that would take the least amount of effort, that results in the most amount of revenue coming in the shortest amount of time possible.
It's the low-hanging fruit.
It is the low-hanging fruit.
Just like when I adopted my first athletic training program, the first thing they did was like, what are the smallest areas on your body? Your forearms, your calves, your neck. Great. Your program is going to be about forearms and calves and neck. And then those like got way stronger, way quicker. And then it was like, great, we can focus on harder to gain stuff now. But those results came so fast. I just want to put that in there. It's a great analogy.
I like that. And the nice thing about it is every single time, and we've helped, maybe close to 10 parkour gyms at this point, 10 out of 10 times so far, the low-hanging fruit was actually, if you make this one tweak, your entire quadricep will triple in size, you know? And a lot of times it does have to do with price, or maybe how their offer is structured, or even before I mentioned sales engineering, a lot of times that is either barely there or totally lacking. And so having someone who knows how to fully connect your social media funnel, your organic web funnel, your sales engineering across the board, and then just make the sales at the back end work. And that's just one example of a few things that are low-hanging fruit that are easy to implement. So hiring us or even anyone, like just investigating what are the real things that you can scale up yourself as an entrepreneur. And I love that you said scale up yourself, Seth, by the way, that ignited me inside. I love that. Finding those things that you can scale this up quickly, that will pay oftentimes for the entire mentorship. That will pay for the pain upfront that you think you're about to endure. Just a few months into it, you get that back, but then it's on a reoccurring monthly stream of cash. So you paid a little upfront, and then you get more than that, and then the next month more than that, and then the next month more than that.
Yep.
And when I hired my first mentor, it was $5,000. That was terrifying to me at that time, because that was like, triple the amount I had in my bank account. The business account didn't have that for sure. But jumped in, and very quickly I saw like, oh, you just tweaked this, and now my business went from, these are the real numbers, 9,000 in revenue a month at that one gym to 20,000 in revenue a month at that one gym. Now our gyms are at 50 to 60,000 in revenue per one location per month, and we have 3 of them. And had it not been for that first time jumping in that cold vat of water, but actually realizing it was a jacuzzi, if I had not done that, I wouldn't have started my personal entrepreneur journey. And so hearing you say that, like, that's now a piece of your regular routine. You have gone beyond this and like sought out the next book, sought out the next space for you to grow into. Now you have a flywheel for yourself, and you are on a path where it is now unreasonable for you to fail, because you are putting in the actions of success. And that is the leading indicator of success that just does result in Seth being where he wants to be, or a entrepreneur being where they want to be, because they're putting in the actions necessary for the future and that promise and all that. So love to hear it.
Yeah. And it's great to see that this is not an isolated experience. Like Jimmy said, we've worked with, close to, I think, over 10 gyms at this point. And very consistently, the amount of money that is invested into us coming down and implementing stuff is made back and then received 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as the months go by, it pays for itself in dividends. So that's
let me just speak to that real quick, because so like Jimmy said earlier, I paid for the most expensive version of that process. At the beginning of the year last year, before we were working with him, we were projected to be like negative $20,000, $30,000 for the year. It was like we were looking at closing the doors if we do not change something. But then through that, we ended up in a profit enough even that I was able to then pay myself back for the investment in the process. So
yeah, and I'm just talking about like paying for what, replacing what you paid for. You're talking about like, this saved my business.
Yeah.
Like we were gonna close the doors and put money in my pocket. That's awesome.
I am fulfilled. Thank you for saying that.
Oh man, that's so great. Yeah, and that, that's why we exist. I said on a previous podcast on Height Drop that Motion Mentors was birthed out of necessity. Jimmy has been that guy looking at closing his doors, and he's been like, no other gym owner is going to experience this. I've been that coach and that gym manager and that district general manager and that COO of a business that has no idea how to create the standard operating systems and procedures to actually have systems that work and develop a culture of accountability and communicate powerfully with my staff. And so with the two of us, we just aim to create this experience for everybody, and so the fact that like you are here is like, that's like the fulfillment of why Motion Mentors exists, that, yeah, it's just the best, absolutely the best.
Cool. Well, Seth, if there's anything else you want to throw in there, now's the time. And I think that's been very valuable for anyone listening. We touched on key components to grow your business, touched on the importance of personal growth and continuing it, and got really blunt with this is a business and it can go under if you're not really trying, so I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. So anything else from you, Seth?
No, just want to thank you guys for having me on and for the continued shared experiences, and excited to see how Motion Mentors continues to develop. It's been something that the parkour community has really needed. Most of us got into running a gym because we love doing parkour and jumping on walls, and wanted to turn that hobby into a career. I think there's probably less than a handful of people who came from any form of business experience or entrepreneurship. So it's been something that, as you guys have been putting out information, it's been phenomenal to see that growing, and I'm sure it'll have a massive impact on the community and the growth of the sport. So.
All right. Thank you for saying that, Seth. Seth, are you in our Facebook group, Parkour Business Owners?
Yes, I am.
All right. So if you have any other insights or things you want to share, pop it in there. And listener, if you are on Facebook, go to Parkour Business Owners Facebook group. We'll let you in. We're posting in there very often. It's one of the only parkour business groups that I am sharing all of my stuff into. And of course, we have free blogs and free things going out for just the whole parkour business community on motionmentors.org. So even if you don't have the cash to sign up for one-on-one help, we are committed to providing as much information for free as we can, because we genuinely just want to see growth in the parkour space. So Seth, thank you for coming on the show. Definitely appreciated your time. And for everyone else, we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.